The night was calm, the kind of quiet that makes small moments feel louder than they should. Sandra Bullock had just finished a long day of travel and interviews, and she pulled into a lonely gas station outside the city. The fluorescent lights flickered above the pumps, buzzing faintly against the silence of the road. She wore a simple hoodie, her hair tied back, hoping to move unnoticed. For once, she just wanted to be a regular person filling her car, not a famous actress in the spotlight. But sometimes life does not allow peace when it is most needed. As Sandra started pumping fuel, the sound of motorcycle engines roared from a distance. 3 bikers rolled into the station, their heavy boots hitting the ground as they dismounted. At first she paid little attention. People came and went at gas stations all the time. But soon their voices rose, rough laughter mixing with taunts that carried through the empty lot. "Well, look who it is," one of them said, his tone mocking. "Ain't that the movie star?" Sandra kept her eyes down, pretending not to hear. She wanted no trouble, but ignoring them only seemed to fuel their energy. They circled closer, their presence heavy, their shadows stretching across the concrete under the harsh lights. Another biker leaned against his bike, smirking. "You think being famous means you too good to talk to us? Come on, say something!" Sandra's heart beat faster, though she tried to stay calm. She had faced critics, cameras, and millions of eyes before. But this felt different. This was not about movies or interviews. This was raw, unfiltered intimidation. Inside her, a quiet voice told her to stay polite, to stay firm, to show no fear. She managed a gentle reply. "I'm just here to get gas. I don't want any trouble." Her words, calm and soft, only drew more laughter. One of them kicked at the gravel near her feet, the sound sharp and unsettling. And then came the unexpected twist. Out of the darkness, another sound emerged, a steady set of footsteps. Slow, calm, deliberate. They echoed against the concrete, cutting through the tension like a knife through glass. The bikers turned, annoyed at the interruption. And there he was, Keanu Reeves. He walked with no rush, no anger in his face, just a calm presence that seemed to change the air around him. He had been on the road himself, stopping quietly at the same station, unseen until now. His hair slightly unkempt, his jacket worn from travel. He looked less like a Hollywood star and more like an ordinary man. But his eyes carried something powerful. Patience, strength, and a deep respect that spoke without words. Sandra's breath caught. Relief mixed with surprise. She had not expected him. Not here, not now. The bikers, confused, exchanged looks. One muttered, "What's this? Some guy coming to play hero?" Keanu stopped a few steps away. His hands relaxed at his sides. He did not shout. He did not threaten. Instead, he spoke in a voice low but steady, the kind that forces people to listen. "Respect," he said simply. "That's all anyone deserves. Show it or walk away." The words hung heavy in the air. The bikers laughed, though their laughter sounded weaker this time. "You serious, man? You telling us what to do?" Keanu didn't flinch. His calmness was unsettling to them, more powerful than anger could ever be. His eyes stayed locked, not with aggression, but with quiet certainty. "You don't need to prove strength by tearing someone else down," he continued. "Real strength is knowing when to stop." The gas station grew silent. Even the buzzing lights seemed to fade into the background. Sandra stood frozen, her heart pounding, her eyes fixed on Keanu. She could see the shift beginning, the bikers no longer mocking but restless, uncertain. The balance of power was changing, not through force but through presence. Inside her chest something stirred. It wasn't just relief. It was awe. This was only the beginning. The air at the gas station felt different now, heavier with silence yet charged with something unspoken. The bikers, once loud and mocking, now stood staring at Keanu Reeves. His words had not been shouted, but they carried a weight that pressed into their pride. Sandra Bullock could feel it too. It was as if the entire space had shifted in tone, like the calm before a storm. The leader of the bikers, a tall man with a scar running down his cheek, broke the silence first. He laughed, but the sound was forced, uneasy. "Look at this guy talking like some wise old man. What are you going to do if we don't listen? You think we're scared of you?" Keanu did not move closer. Instead, he leaned slightly against the metal frame of a fuel pump, casual but steady, as if he had all the time in the world. His voice came again, slow, measured, the kind of tone that forced everyone else to measure their own reactions. "I'm not here to scare you," he said, "but I am here to remind you that how you treat others says more about you than anything else." The scarred biker sneered, stepping closer, his boots scraping against the concrete. Sandra's hands trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. She wanted to step in, to speak up, but the danger in the man's eyes made her freeze. The second biker, younger, restless, crossed his arms and muttered, "Why should we care what you think?" Keanu's eyes flicked to him, calm and piercing. "Because one day you'll wish someone showed you kindness when you needed it most. What you give out comes back." The younger biker faltered, looking away, though he tried to hide his reaction. Sandra noticed it. She saw the cracks forming in their bravado, and then something unexpected happened. A car pulled up to the far side of the station. A family inside, a father, a mother, and 2 children. They looked weary from travel, the kids rubbing their eyes. They had no idea of the tension that had filled this small space just moments earlier. The family's presence added another layer to the scene. Sandra's heart quickened, fear gnawing at her. If things escalated, innocent people could be caught in it. She glanced at Keanu, her eyes silently pleading for the moment to end without chaos. But Keanu's calm only deepened. He stepped slightly forward, positioning himself subtly between Sandra and the bikers, his body language protective but not aggressive. It was as if he was telling Sandra and maybe even the strangers nearby, "You're safe," the scarred biker noticed. He smirked again, though his smirk seemed thinner now. "What are you, some kind of saint?" He spat. Keanu's reply came without hesitation. "No, just someone who's tired of people thinking respect is optional." The words hung like a weight in the cold night air. Sandra felt her throat tighten. It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it. With quiet certainty, without arrogance. It was the kind of presence that made others question themselves, even when they didn't want to admit it. The third biker, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was quieter, less mocking. "Why do you care anyway? She's just another celebrity. People like her get everything. Why should we treat her different?" Sandra felt the sting in those words. She had heard accusations like that before, that fame meant she didn't deserve sympathy or understanding. But beneath the biker's rough tone, she heard something else. Pain, resentment, maybe even jealousy. Keanu's gaze softened. "She's not different. She's human just like you, just like me. It's not about fame or money. It's about dignity. Everyone deserves it." The younger biker shifted uncomfortably again, his face betraying doubt. Sandra noticed the subtle change and felt a strange swell of hope. The scarred biker, however, wasn't ready to let go. He took another step forward, his eyes narrowed, his tone sharper. "You talk too much. Maybe you should show us what happens if we don't listen." The threat hung in the air, sharp and dangerous. Sandra's heart raced. She wanted to scream, to tell them to stop, but her voice caught in her throat. Keanu didn't move. His calm expression remained, though his eyes sharpened with focus. "Violence doesn't make you stronger," he said, voice steady. "It only shows how weak you are inside." The scarred biker's jaw tightened. For a moment, it seemed he might explode. His hand clenched into a fist, his knuckles white. Sandra's breath hitched. She braced for the worst. But just then, the sound of one of the children from the family nearby broke the tension. A small voice, innocent and tired, asked, "Mommy, can we go home now?" The words cut through the moment like sunlight through a storm. The scarred biker turned his head, noticing the family watching, their wide eyes filled with fear. For a split second, something in his expression flickered. Hesitation, maybe even shame. Keanu seized that moment, his voice softer now, almost compassionate. "They're watching," he said. "What do you want them to remember? Fear or respect?" The silence that followed was crushing. Sandra felt tears sting her eyes, not from fear this time, but from the weight of what was happening. The bikers didn't answer right away. They shifted uncomfortably, their confidence shaken. The younger one looked away, guilt flickering across his face. The third avoided eye contact altogether. Only the scarred one held his ground, though his silence betrayed his struggle. Sandra realized something then. This was not just a confrontation. It was a mirror being held up to these men, forcing them to see themselves as they truly were. And in that silence, with the buzzing lights above and the sound of distant engines on the highway, something deeper was about to unfold. The night stretched heavier than before, every second loaded with suspense. The flickering gas station lights painted long shadows across the cracked concrete. Sandra Bullock stood frozen, her hand still resting on the fuel nozzle, her breath shallow. She couldn't shake the thought that one wrong word, one wrong move, could break the fragile balance holding this moment together. Keanu Reeves remained calm, steady, almost unshakable. His presence alone had shifted the tone, yet the threat still lingered like a storm cloud refusing to move. The scarred biker stared him down, his jaw tight, fists clenched. As if struggling with a decision between walking away and proving his dominance, Sandra felt her pulse in her ears. And for the first time, a thought crossed her mind that both terrified and comforted her. Keanu wasn't only standing up for her. He was standing up for something larger, something universal. It wasn't about celebrity or fame. It was about respect. The silence cracked when the younger biker suddenly muttered under his breath, almost as if speaking to himself. "Man, what if he's right?" The scarred biker's head whipped toward him, eyes narrowing in anger. "Don't go soft now. He's just talking nonsense." But the younger man's voice rose, firmer this time. "No, listen. He's not yelling, he's not showing off, and yet I feel like he's stronger than all of us right now." The words landed like a stone in still water, sending ripples through the tense air. Sandra's heart caught in her throat. She had not expected this. Keanu didn't smirk, didn't gloat. Instead, he spoke gently, seizing the shift. "Strength isn't in how loud you are. It's in how much you can control yourself when it matters most." The third biker, the quiet one, stepped back a little. His eyes, once hard, now softened with unease. "Maybe we should just leave," he muttered. But the scarred leader wasn't ready to give in. His pride was a cage he couldn't escape from. He stepped closer to Keanu, his shadow falling long over the concrete. "You think a few fancy words can change us? You think you can embarrass me in front of my own crew?" Sandra flinched. She could see the storm in the man's eyes, the kind of rage that couldn't be reasoned with. But before anything could happen, a surprising sound broke the tension again. A gentle cough. Everyone turned. The father from the nearby car had stepped out, his hands slightly raised in a gesture of peace. His wife and children sat nervously inside, their eyes wide with worry. "Please," the father said softly, his voice trembling but steady. "My kid, they don't need to see this. Let's not turn this night into something they'll never forget for the wrong reasons." The scarred biker glared at him, ready to snap back. But something in the father's trembling tone seemed to disarm him. It wasn't a challenge. It was a plea. Keanu looked at the father, then back at the bikers. "He's right," he said. "What happens here tonight will be remembered. Not just by you, not just by me, but by them." He tilted his head toward the children watching from the car window. "What kind of men do you want them to think you are?" The scarred biker's lips pressed tight, his chest rising and falling faster. Sandra noticed his hands tremble slightly. For the first time, she wondered if his anger was hiding something deeper. Pain, regret, maybe even fear. The younger biker spoke again, louder now, as if making a choice. "Man, I'm done with this. I didn't sign up to scare kids. Let's just go." The quiet biker nodded in agreement. "Yeah, this ain't worth it." They both looked at their leader, waiting for his decision. The scarred biker's face twisted, caught between rage and defeat. His pride screamed to push back, to prove himself. But the weight of Keanu's calm gaze, the innocent eyes of the children, and the wavering loyalty of his crew pressed against him like invisible hands. Sandra held her breath, sensing the turning point. But just when it seemed he might back down, the scarred biker suddenly slammed his fist against the metal pump beside Keanu, the loud clang echoing through the station. Sandra jumped at the noise, her heart racing. The biker leaned in close, his voice low and bitter. "This isn't over. People like you. You think kindness wins, but out here the world doesn't work that way." Keanu didn't flinch, didn't move away. His voice, calm but unyielding, came like a final truth. The world only changes when someone dares to live differently. I choose respect. You can too. Or you can keep choosing fear. The scarred biker froze for a moment, his breath heavy. His eyes locked with Keanu's, searching for something. Weakness, hesitation, anything to break the steady calm. But there was nothing to find. He finally pulled back, his jaw tight, and turned sharply toward his bike. "Let's go," he barked at his crew. The younger biker gave a small sigh of relief, climbing onto his bike quickly. The quiet one followed without a word. The scarred leader lingered for a moment, his eyes flicking back at Keanu and Sandra, but he said nothing more. The roar of engines filled the air as the three bikers pulled out of the gas station, disappearing into the darkness of the highway. Sandra's knees felt weak as the silence returned. She realized she had been holding her breath for too long. She let it out slowly, her hands trembling. Keanu finally turned toward her, his expression soft now, the storm in his eyes replaced with quiet reassurance. "You okay?" he asked gently. Sandra nodded, though her voice caught in her throat. I don't even know what to say." Before Keanu could answer, the father from the family spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. You didn't just protect her. You protected all of us." The mother, still clutching her children, nodded silently, tears glistening in her eyes. Sandra looked at Keanu, and in that moment, she saw him not as the movie star the world adored, but as something far greater, a man who lived by values that too many people had forgotten. The night was far from over, because what happened at that gas station was about to ripple far beyond its cracked pavement. The hum of the engines faded into the distance until all that remained was the faint buzzing of the gas station lights. Sandra Bullock finally exhaled, realizing her shoulders had been locked tight with fear. Her hand slipped from the fuel pump, and for a moment, she leaned against her car, steadying herself. The tension had been so sharp that now, in its absence, her body felt almost weightless. Keanu Reeves stood nearby, calm as ever, as though the storm had never touched him. But Sandra could see in his eyes that he had been watching every detail, every move, carrying the weight of responsibility not only for her, but for the family caught in the middle. The father approached, his voice trembling with sincerity. "You don't know what you just did for us. I thought my kids would see something tonight that would scar them forever. Instead, they saw the opposite." Keanu gave a small nod, his tone humble, almost quiet. "I didn't do it alone. Sometimes it's enough just to hold the space until the truth shows itself." Sandra blinked, her throat tight. Those words, simple as they were, carried more depth than any speech she had heard in Hollywood. But the moment of peace didn't last long. Sandra noticed something unsettling. The scarred biker's words echoed in her head. This isn't over. She couldn't shake the feeling that he meant it, that he wasn't the type to simply walk away and forget. The family packed quickly, the father urging his children into their seats. He gave Sandra and Keanu one last grateful glance before driving off into the night. Their tail lights faded down the empty road, leaving the two of them alone under the cold glow of the gas station lamps. "You think they'll come back?" Sandra asked softly, her voice carrying unease. Keanu looked down for a moment, then back at her. Sometimes people let their pride lead them into places they shouldn't go. "But whatever happens, we'll face it." The certainty in his voice steadied her, though the unease in her chest didn't fully fade. Minutes passed in silence. Sandra tried to distract herself by cleaning the windshield of her car, but her hands shook. Keanu quietly helped, not saying much, his calm presence doing more for her than words ever could. Then, just as Sandra began to feel the night might settle again, the faint sound of engines returned. Not one, not two, but many. Her heart dropped. In the distance, a cluster of headlights appeared on the dark stretch of road, growing larger with every second. The roar of multiple motorcycles thundered against the night sky, louder, more menacing than before. Sandra's breath caught. "Oh no! They brought more!" Keanu's eyes narrowed, his body tensing, though his face remained composed. He stepped slightly forward, instinctively placing himself between Sandra and the approaching threat. The bikes rolled into the station, forming a semicircle that boxed them in. 7, maybe 8 men this time. The scarred leader was at the front, his eyes burning with defiance. His earlier humiliation had brought reinforcements. "Told you it wasn't over," he sneered, his voice loud enough to echo through the empty lot. Sandra's pulse raced. Her mind screamed at her to run, to escape, but her feet refused to move. She glanced at Keanu, searching for a sign of fear. There was none. Instead, he stood grounded, his breathing steady, his expression unreadable. The scarred biker dismounted, pacing slowly. "You embarrassed me in front of my crew. Now you think you're some kind of hero. But tonight, we'll see how much your words mean when it's not 3 against 1, but 8 against 2. Sandra's chest tightened. This wasn't just intimidation anymore, it was escalation. Keanu's response came calm, measured, like ripples in still water. Numbers don't change the truth. Respect is still respect, no matter how many try to bury it. The men laughed, their voices loud and mocking. The sound of boots scraping concrete filled the air as a few stepped closer, circling. Sandra felt her knees weaken. "Keanu," she whispered, "what do we do?" He glanced at her briefly, his tone gentle. "Stay behind me. Trust that not every battle needs fists. Sometimes the heart speaks louder." But even as he spoke, the situation grew more dangerous. One of the bikers kicked over a trash can, the clatter breaking the fragile quiet. Another revved his engine aggressively, the roar rattling through the lot. The scarred leader pointed at Sandra. "She doesn't belong here. People like her live in mansions, drive fancy cars, while the rest of us scrape by. She deserves to be reminded she's not above us." Sandra felt a sting deep inside. It wasn't just hatred, it was resentment, born of real struggle twisted into cruelty. Her voice cracked as she answered, surprising even herself. "I don't think I'm above anyone. I've worked hard, but I've also been given chances. That doesn't mean I don't understand pain." Her words momentarily stunned the circle, but the scarred leader scoffed. "You'll never understand people like us." Keanu stepped in, his voice calm yet unshakable. "She may not understand every piece of your pain, but she understands something you've forgotten. Compassion, humility. Those aren't weaknesses. They're strength. And the fact that you came back with more men only shows how little strength you truly have." The bikers shifted uneasily. His words struck harder than fists ever could. But the scarred leader growled, his pride refusing to break. "Enough talk. Let's see what happens when words meet reality." The tension spiked, heavy as thunderclouds ready to burst. Sandra gripped the side of her car, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Keanu took a slow step forward, his calm presence defying the storm surrounding them. Every biker's eyes locked on him, waiting, wondering what he would do. And in that razor-thin moment, as the night teetered between violence and revelation, the true test of respect and humanity was about to begin. The night was alive with the roar of engines still idling, the smell of gasoline thick in the air. The gas station felt like a stage, every flicker of light above casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. Sandra Bullock's chest tightened with every second. The circle of bikers loomed larger now, their bodies forming a wall of intimidation. She clutched the edge of her car, wishing she could melt into the ground. Keanu Reeves stood unmoved, his posture steady, his presence a strange calm against the chaos. He did not raise his fists, did not shout. Instead, his silence carried more power than their noise. It was the kind of silence that demanded attention, the kind that made men question their own certainty. The scarred leader stepped forward, his boots echoing with each step. "You've got courage, I'll give you that," he growled. "But courage won't save you tonight." Sandra felt her pulse hammer in her throat. She wanted to scream, to beg for this madness to end, but her voice stayed trapped in her chest. She turned her eyes to Keanu, searching for any sign of fear. Instead, she found something she hadn't expected. Patience. Unshakable patience. Keanu finally spoke, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the laughter and mockery. "You're not here because of me. You're here because of what you're fighting inside yourselves. I just happened to be standing in front of it." The bikers exchanged uneasy glances. The words struck deeper than they wanted to admit. Sandra could see it, the flicker of doubt in their eyes, the cracks forming in their armor of bravado. The scarred leader, unwilling to show weakness, barked back. "Don't try to play mind games. We're not scared of words." Keanu tilted his head slightly, his gaze unwavering. "If you weren't scared, you wouldn't need 7 more men to prove your point." A murmur rippled through the circle. 2 of the bikers shifted uncomfortably, their eyes dropping for just a moment. Sandra caught it. Shame, hesitation, even regret. But before the balance could tip, one of the younger bikers lunged forward, shoving Keanu's shoulder. Sandra gasped, her heart leaping into her throat. Keanu did not strike back. Instead, he simply stepped back with the force, his body absorbing the push without resistance. His calm reaction threw the young man off balance, as if his aggression had nowhere to land. "See?" Keanu said softly, steadying himself. "That anger doesn't make you stronger. It only leaves you emptier." The young biker froze, his chest heaving, his eyes darting between his leader and Keanu. He expected retaliation, a fight, a battle he could fuel with rage. Instead, he was left standing in the hollow silence of his own actions. Sandra's breath caught. She realized what Keanu was doing. He wasn't just confronting them. He was teaching them, holding up a mirror they couldn't look away from. The scarred leader growled, his pride stung. "Enough of this! He wants to act like he's better than us. Then let's show him what happens when you stand in our way." He raised his hand, signaling the group forward. Sandra's heart stopped. This was it, the moment it would all fall apart. Her fingers dug into the cold metal of her car door. But before the group could move, the quiet biker, the one who had said the least all night, stepped between his leader and Keanu. His voice, though shaky, carried surprising strength. "Stop, this isn't right." The others froze, startled. The scarred leader's face twisted in disbelief. "What did you say?" The quiet biker's eyes darted to the family's discarded trash from earlier. The juice box, the blanket left on the ground, reminders of the children who had been watching. His voice cracked, but he pressed on. "We've already gone too far. Those kids, they'll remember us as monsters. I can't do this." The younger biker who had shoved Keanu shifted nervously, his anger draining. "He's right. This doesn't feel right anymore." Sandra's eyes widened. Hope flickered inside her chest. For the first time, the circle seemed less like a trap and more like a battle within itself. Keanu stepped forward, his tone gentle but firm. "You don't have to keep choosing this path. You can walk away tonight and be remembered for stopping, not for destroying." The scarred leader's face burned with fury. His control was slipping, his men wavering. "You cowards. You'd let this stranger humiliate us?" But the words didn't land as powerfully as before. The spell of fear was breaking. Sandra could see it in their faces. Doubt was stronger than blind loyalty now. Then the sound of sirens pierced the night. Faint at first, but growing louder, red and blue lights flashed on the horizon, approaching fast. The bikers froze, their bravado crumbling at the thought of police arriving. The scarred leader's eyes darted wildly, panic replacing his rage. Keanu's voice cut through once more, steady as ever. "You still have a choice. Leave now, and maybe you'll remember this night differently. Stay, and you'll regret it." The sirens wailed closer. The bikers, one by one, began retreating to their bikes. The quiet one mounted quickly, avoiding his leader's glare. The younger one followed, muttering under his breath. Soon, all but the scarred leader were ready to flee. He stood rigid, his chest heaving, his pride unwilling to let go. His eyes locked on Keanu one last time. "This isn't over!" he hissed, his voice low and broken. And with that, he revved his engine and tore out of the station, his men following behind, their headlights disappearing into the dark highway. Sandra collapsed against her car, her legs weak, her breaths shaky. The weight of what almost happened pressed against her chest like a stone. Keanu stepped closer, his voice soft, almost a whisper. "It's over, for now." But Sandra could tell from his eyes that he knew the scarred biker's words carried truth. This night wasn't finished. It had only begun to write its story. The sirens faded as quickly as they had come. The police cars never turned into the station, just passed by on the highway, chasing some other call in the distance. The gas station was silent again, empty, except for Sandra and Keanu. The cold night air wrapped around them, carrying the faint smell of gasoline and burnt rubber left behind by the bikers. Sandra's hands still shook as she leaned against her car, trying to steady her breath. Her eyes drifted to Keanu, who stood calm, his gaze fixed on the road where the bikers had vanished. His silence carried a weight that unsettled her. "You think he'll come back?" she asked, her voice fragile. Keanu's eyes softened, but there was truth in them she wasn't ready to hear. Anger doesn't end just because the night is quiet. People like him, they carry battles inside that no one else can see. He might return or he might not. But what matters is how we carry ourselves when he does. Those words lingered in Sandra's heart. She realized then that Keanu wasn't just protecting her. He was standing against something bigger, against the idea that cruelty had to rule the world. They finished fueling the car in silence. The sound of the pump clicking was strangely grounding, pulling them back into ordinary life. But deep inside, both of them knew this night had shifted something. Just as Sandra started the engine, the sound of a lone motorcycle echoed back into the station. Her heart jumped, fear flooding her chest. Headlights swept across the pavement, and the scarred leader appeared, riding alone this time. He stopped in front of them, cutting the engine. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Sandra's breath caught. She braced herself for more threats, for violence, for the storm to return. But when the man removed his helmet, his expression was different. His jaw was still tight, his eyes still hard. But there was something else. A weariness, almost shame, hidden beneath the surface. He looked at Keanu first, his voice low and uneven. "You think you're better than me, but you're not. I've fought my whole life to be respected. And tonight I realized, the only time people looked at me with fear, I felt powerful. But then those kids looked at me and I felt small." Sandra's throat tightened. She hadn't expected this. The man turned his gaze to her, his voice heavy. "You'll never know what it's like to be invisible, to fight just to be noticed. Seeing you, someone with everything, it made me hate you. But maybe it wasn't you I hated. Maybe it was the world." Keanu stepped forward slowly, his tone calm, steady, carrying no judgment. "You're not invisible. You just chose the wrong way to be seen. Respect doesn't come from fear. It comes from what you give to others." The scarred biker's eyes dropped to the ground. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he muttered, almost to himself, "I don't even know who I am without the anger." Keanu let the silence sit before replying. "Maybe tonight is when you start finding out." The man looked at him, his expression torn between pride and something softer, something breaking open. Finally, he nodded once, sharp and quick, as if admitting more would hurt too much. Without another word, he put his helmet back on, started the engine, and rode off into the night. This time, Sandra didn't feel fear. She felt relief. And, strangely, a kind of respect for a man who had almost lost himself, but chose, at least for now, to pause. The station grew quiet again. The stars above seemed brighter, the night less suffocating. Sandra turned to Keanu, her eyes wet with tears she had been holding back. "How do you do that?" she whispered. "How do you stay so calm when everything around you is chaos?" Keanu looked at her, his face gentle. "Because I know anger feeds on anger. If I give it nothing, it starves. But if I meet it with respect sometimes, just sometimes, it changes." Sandra swallowed hard. Those words sank deep into her heart. She realized that what she had just witnessed wasn't about her being saved by a friend. It was about witnessing what true strength looked like. Not fists, not shouting, but humility, patience, and kindness in the face of danger, she whispered softly, almost to herself. "You left everyone speechless tonight." Keanu gave a small smile, the kind that held no pride, only quiet truth. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. As they drove away from the gas station, the night stretched open before them. The danger had passed, but the lesson lingered. For Sandra, it became a memory she would never forget, not because of the fear, but because of what it revealed, that even in the darkest moments, kindness and respect could still shine brighter than rage. And for Keanu, it was another night reminding him of what he already lived by. that greatness isn't in the spotlight, but in the quiet choices no one expects. The road carried them forward, away from the gas station, but the story of that night would echo far beyond its cracked pavement.